Chioma, you're not the same woman you used to be anymore. Every time we go outside, I feel uncomfortable walking. You've had 3 children, you know? Your body.
Saying, Kelechi, not a question.
What are you talking about, Kelechi?
I'm just being honest. I think we need to be more honest with each other. You're not the same anymore. I don't feel.
Meeting the sink, barely a whisper. She turned and looked at her husband. 10 years, 3 children. 2 cesareans and 1 natural birth at 3 in the morning when he was in a meeting in Abuja. The stretch marks she had learned to be ashamed of because he had never said it outright, but his eyes had been saying it for a long time. Now his mouth was saying it too.
Have you finished?
Kioma dried her hands on the dish towel, hung it back in its place, walked out of the kitchen. Tobena was sitting at the dining table doing his homework. The 9-year-old boy watched his mother walk past. She smiled at him, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the kind mothers learn after many.
Keep working on your homework.
Just one more page, Mommy.
Finish your homework, then go
to sleep. She went into the bedroom, closed the door. Inside, she sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at her own hands. Hands that had cooked for 10 years, bathed 3 children, held her husband's hand in the delivery room back when he still chose to be there. She didn't cry. She simply sat there with the truth that had just been spoken aloud and let it stay beside her for a while. That was Tuesday evening. Friday, Kelechi brought Adora home for the first time and introduced her as a colleague stopping by. Adora was well-dressed, spoke softly, complimented the cleanliness of the house, complimented the soup. She looked at Kioma with the eyes of someone performing and knowing they were performing well. Mama Kelechi sat at the dinner table and said nothing out of the ordinary. Tobena finished eating, asked to be excused, and before going to his room held Adora's gaze for 1 second, the look of a child who understands but does not yet have the words. That night, Kioma lay staring at the ceiling. 6 months later, Adora threw boiling water on Chidi. And the following morning, Kioma gathered her 3 children along with the savings account in her own name and left. Not because she had lost, but because there are things a mother cannot allow her children to witness for even 1 more day. Kioma and Kelechi married when she was 24, in a December that brought rare sunshine to Enugu. In her parents' courtyard with 20 plastic tables and a hired band that played offbeat all afternoon, and no one noticed because everyone was too busy being happy. Back then, Kelechi looked at her in a way she had never been looked at before, not looked past, looked into. As though she were something he had chosen after careful thought and did not regret choosing. She kept that look inside her chest for many years after, as proof, as collateral, as something to take out and examine on the evenings he came home late without explanation. She did not know that a person could look at someone that way and still gradually stop looking. The first year was good, not exceptional, good. The kind of marriage where mornings had coffee already on the table and evenings had someone asking how was your day, even though the answer was usually brief. The kind of ordinary that people inside don't recognize as happiness until it begins to fade. Kelechi worked as an accountant for a construction company, decent salary, not wealthy but enough. He had a habit of reading the newspaper in the mornings before speaking to anyone, something Kioma found amusing at first and lonely later on. Kioma taught mathematics at a small private school nearby. She loved the work. Loved that moment when a student staring at a problem with a darkened face would suddenly look up with eyes that had just understood. She told Kelechi that feeling couldn't be bought with money. He said, and kept reading the newspaper. Tobena was born when Kioma was 25. Kelechi stood in the delivery room and wept. Men weep when they see their firstborn, which doesn't say much about a person, but in that moment, Kioma believed it said everything. After Tobena was 3 months old,
Chioma, you should stop teaching.
The baby needs his mother at home. I can take care of us. You don't need to work.
But I like teaching.
You still love teaching. That will still be there. When the baby is older, you can go back. Right now, he needs you more.
that sentence sounded reasonable, in the way that sentences which take things from people often sound reasonable. She stopped teaching. She did not know that when he's older was a day that would never come. because after Tobena there was Neka, and after Neka there was Chidi, and each time she brought up returning to teaching, there was always a new reason that sounded very reasonable. 10 years passed the way years pass when a person is busy, not busy with things she chose, but busy with things that needed doing. Wake before everyone else, cook breakfast, take Tobena to school, bathe Neka, nurse Chidi. Clean the house, pick Tobena up, cook dinner, bathe all three, tell the older ones a story. Pat the younger one to sleep, wash the dishes, do the laundry, lie down, begin again. No one asked whether she was tired because the answer was obvious enough not to need asking. No one thanked her because that too was as obvious as air. People do not thank the air. Kioma understood this. She accepted this. She had decided from the very beginning that this was the life she had chosen, and she would live it with dignity. What she had not chosen were the things that came after. Her body changed with each birth, obvious as the sky, something no one told her would be used against her. After Tobena, she gained 6 kilos and never lost all of it. After Neka, 4 more. After Chidi, her second cesarean, the incision crossing the old scar, she looked in the mirror for the first time after leaving the hospital and stood there for a long time. Not because she found herself ugly, but because she saw Kelechi standing in the bathroom doorway watching her, and his expression, just for a second. Mama Kelechi visited twice a month and brought opinions as reliably as she brought fruit. She was not a cruel woman, this is important to say clearly. She was a woman who loved her son with a kind of love that had no room for questions. The kind of love that believed protecting him was the highest duty, regardless of what she was protecting him from or to what end.
You should dress more neatly when Kelechi comes home.
Your hair is too messy.
Comb your hair. A woman must know how to keep herself. Kelechi works hard.
Don't talk about the children the moment he comes home. Let him breathe first.
Each sentence alone was small. Accumulated over 10 years, they became something heavier than people realize. Kioma nodded each time, yes ma. She had nodded so many times that the motion no longer required thought. Automatic as reflex, light as habit, hollow as a promise no one keeps. The signs about Adora did not arrive as one large event. They arrived as small things accumulating over more than a year, the kind of evidence a person knows but does not want to know, because knowing means having to do something with what one knows. Phone placed face down on the table. He never used to do that. Deleted messages. She saw the screen once, just once, long enough to see an unfamiliar name. A foreign perfume on the collar of a shirt, dropped in the laundry basket. Meetings increased from once a week to twice, then 3 times, and Kelechi stopped explaining further because he had learned that Kioma didn't ask. She didn't ask. Not because she feared the answer, but because she had done the calculation, and it was a very cold, very practical, very painful calculation. Tobena was 9. Neka was 6. Chidi was 2. They needed their father. They needed an intact home. Kioma would keep this home intact. That was a mother's calculation. Not wrong. It simply hadn't accounted for Adora and the kettle of boiling water. One afternoon, Mama Kelechi came to visit and found Kioma sitting at the dining table with Kelechi's phone in her hand, not reading it, just holding it, staring at the dark screen. Mama Kelechi paused at the kitchen
Knowing
doorway.
more only
Then
brings
she
more
said,
pain.
without hesitation, without softness, in the voice of someone who had decided on this sentence long before, "Put it down, child. Knowing more only brings more suffering." Mama Kelechi went into the kitchen and poured herself a glass of water as though nothing had happened. Kioma sat at the dining table with empty hands, and a truth just confirmed not by words, but by the words of someone who should have said something different. Outside Lego's
Is there food, Mommy?
Kioma stood up, went to the kitchen, served her son his food. Life continued the way it continues when a person does not yet know that the breaking point is drawing closer every day. Quietly, surely, without asking permission. A Saturday morning, Kelechi had gone out early. Mama Kelechi was watching television in the living room. Adora was in the kitchen. She had begun moving through it as though it were her kitchen for several weeks now. Kioma was folding laundry in the bedroom. She heard Adora opening a cabinet for a pot. Heard water running. The sounds of her own home, now as unfamiliar as someone else's house. Chidi, 2 years old, short legs that ran fast, ran out of his room because Chidi ran into everything. That was the business of a 2-year-old. Kioma heard him running. Didn't pay attention right away. Chidi was always running everywhere. She was used to it. Then the crying erupted. Not ordinary crying. Not the cry of a child who has fallen or is sleepy or hungry. The kind of crying that any mother who has heard it once recognizes immediately. The cry of real pain, sudden pain, pain too overwhelming to comprehend. Kioma dropped the laundry and ran. Adora was standing by the stove, still holding the kettle. Chidi was sitting on the floor, his right arm red from wrist upward. The boy was crying without sound now, mouth open, eyes shut, the cry that comes when the pain is too great to produce and
He ran in by himself. I didn't mean to.
Kioma did not look at Adora. Did not look at Mama Kalechi appearing in the kitchen doorway with a face not yet rearranged. She knelt down and picked up her son. Chidi's small hand was red and raw, skin already blistering in several places. He trembled in his...
Mommy is here.
Mama's here. She carried him and ran outside. Didn't take her bag, didn't put on shoes. Bare feet on the hot cement of the front yard, calling loudly for Tabena and Naneka to... She sat there for a very long time without thinking anything, or thinking too many things at once until she could no longer tell what was thought and what was emotion. Then slowly, very clearly, one question rose in her mind. What am I protecting? I stayed to protect an intact home. So the 3 children would have a father, so the family would not break. But that intact home had just let her child's hand get burned. That unbroken family had just let a strange woman stand in her kitchen with a kettle. That intact home, still intact on paper, still with a father, a mother, and children, still with dinner every day, was not what she was protecting. It was what was imprisoning her. The string snapped without noise. There was no sound of breaking, no dramatic moment. It was just, she sat beside her child's bed in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and cold white light, and she felt something inside her let go. Not letting go in the sense of refusing, letting go in the sense of no longer holding on to the illusion that enduring one more day would make anything different. Kioma looked at her child's white bandaged hand. Then she took out her phone. She did not call Kelechi. She did not call Mama Kelechi. She called her cousin in Enugu, whom she had not spoken to since last year.
Big sister, I need help.
Kioma did not tell Kelechi right away. She needed 2 days. Not to hesitate, to prepare. Those 2 things were completely different. The first day, her cousin in Enugu said there was an empty room. Said, just come back here, we'll figure it out later. She did not ask much. That was the kind of person you only learned to value when life needed them. Kioma hung up. Took the small notebook from the drawer. The notebook she had kept for 3 years, recording every small amount of money saved from grocery money. From the times Kelechi gave her household money, and she spent more carefully than he thought. Not much, but enough to begin. That night, after the 3 children slept, she sat down beside Tobena. The boy was lying there staring at the ceiling, still unable to sleep.
Son.
Yes, Mom.
I want to tell you something. We're moving away, me and the 3 of you. We're going to Enugu to stay with Aunt Ngozi.
Daddy is not coming with us. It was not a question.
Daddy isn't coming with us.
Tobena looked at his mother for a while, then nodded, slowly once. Like someone who had been waiting for that sentence for a long time and now, after hearing it, could finally breathe out. The second day, she packed while the 3 children were at school. She did not pack much. 2 suitcases, 3 backpacks for the children, a box of important documents. Family register, birth certificates, diploma, savings book, the necessary things. Nothing more. After packing, she left the suitcases in the wardrobe under ordinary clothes, closed the wardrobe door. Cooked dinner like every day, bathed the 3 children like every day, told Naneka a bedtime story like every day. Kelechi came home at 10 at night. She was already asleep or lying still, pretending to sleep. He did not ask. He did not ask many things he should have asked long ago. 4 in the morning on the 3rd day, Kelechi was sleeping. Kioma woke without needing an alarm. She had not truly slept since midnight, only lying there waiting for the sky to be dark enough to get up. She dressed in the dark, did not turn on the light. She stood at the bedroom door and looked in one last time. Kelechi was lying on his side, one arm stretched toward where she had been lying. A 10-year habit, a hand searching for the person used to lying beside him. Kioma looked at that hand, not angry, not hurt. Then she turned away. She woke the 3 children in silence.
Tobena, wake up now.
His eyes alert as if he had not slept. Neka grumbled, then went quiet when she saw her mother's face. Chidi was lifted up, pressed his face into his mother's shoulder, and kept sleeping. She pulled the suitcases into the hallway, gently, step by step. The front door opened. Lexos at 4 in the morning was not fully bright yet. A gray color lay on the horizon. The sound of trucks moving on the main road far away. The smell of early morning mist mixed with smoke from somewhere. Tobena stood beside his mother, carrying a bag, saying nothing. Neneka held the hem of her mother's shirt. Chidi slept on his mother's shoulder, his white bandaged hand relaxed. Let's go, children. The taxi was waiting at the end of the alley. The driver looked at a woman pulling 2 suitcases, leading 2 children, carrying 1 child, 4 in the morning before dawn, and asked nothing. He got out and helped put the suitcases into the trunk. They got into the car, the door closed. When the car began to move, Neneka looked through the window at the house receding behind them.
Mommy, are we coming back?
Kioma looked straight ahead. We will come back to visit, but not to live. Neka nodded, leaned against her mother's shoulder, closed her eyes. The car drove into the last darkness of Lagos. The city had not awakened. The road was still empty. Kioma sat with her back straight. She did not look back. Mama Kelechi arrived at 10 after her son called. She went through every room, opened the wardrobe, looked inside, empty. Looked inside the children's wardrobe, empty. She sat down on the living room chair and said nothing for a very long time.
You already know. Know what? She didn't leave for a visit. She left for good.
Then looked out the window. He called Adora. Adora moved into the house 1 week later. She brought 2 suitcases and the way of occupying space of someone who had been waiting for this for a long time. Rearranged the kitchen cabinets, hung new curtains in the living room. Said the master bedroom needed to be repainted a different color.
The old color feels too sad.
Mama Kelechi watched the painters cover the wall color her former daughter-in-law had chosen and said nothing. The first 3 months were fine, or seemed fine. Adora cooked. Not as well as Kioma, but she did. She laughed a lot. There was laughter in the house. Kelechi told himself he had chosen correctly. Mama Kelechi ate dinner every evening and watched and said nothing. She had learned that speaking did not change anything with her son. In the 4th month, Adora began coming home late, meeting friends. Kelechi believed it, because he was used to using that sentence. In the 6th month, a strange man called the house number. Asked for Adora. His voice was not friendly. Mentioned an amount of money. Kelechi asked Adora about it that night. She cried. Said a friend had tricked her into an investment. Said she would handle it. Said he should not worry. He believed her. Because people often believe what they want to be true. The 8th month, the debt doubled. This time it was not 1 strange man calling, it was 3. Different days, different voices. The total amount was enough to make Kelechi's hands tremble as he sat calculating. He asked Adora again. This time there were no tears. Only the cold eyes of someone who had been caught and no longer needed to perform.
Whether you worry or don't, that money still has to be paid. Where did you get the money from?
What did you do?
You asked too many questions.
She turned and went into the bedroom, closed the door. Kelechi stood in the living room, the house with new curtains and freshly painted walls and no children's voices, and for the first time he wondered what he was standing there for. Mama Kelechi began to notice things she did not want to notice. Money disappeared from the house in ways that could not be explained. Adora often went out at night and returned smelling of alcohol and refused to answer questions. One time Mama Kelechi saw her sitting in a car with a strange man at the end of the street. When Adora noticed her watching, she got out of the car as if nothing had happened. She told her son, "Mom, stay out of my business." That sentence, she had said something similar to Kioma, many times.
Stay out of it. Stop asking so many questions. Just keep enduring it.
Now, hearing it from her son's mouth, it carried a different weight. She sat down in the chair where Kioma used to sit folding clothes in the evenings, and for the first time Mama Kelechi sat with the question she had avoided for years. Did I protect my son?
Or did I harm him?
There was no comforting answer to that question. In the 11th month, the final news arrived. The bank sent a letter. The house had been used as collateral for a loan. Kelechi's signature, he swore he had not signed, but the signature was there and the lawyer said proving forgery would take longer than the time left. Payment due next month. Kelechi called Adora, no answer, called again, a 3rd time, a 10th time. That evening, he came home and found the bedroom empty, the wardrobe empty. Adora had disappeared as neatly as if she had never been there, leaving behind only the scent of perfume on the pillow and enough debt to lose the house. Mama Kelechi was sitting in the living room when her son came home. She looked at him. He looked back at her. Neither spoke for a very long time. Then Kelechi sat down on the floor, not in a chair, on the floor, leaning against the wall, holding his head in his hands. Outside, Lagos continued being Lagos, loud, uncaring, waiting for no one. Mama Kelechi looked at her son sitting on the floor of a house that was about to stop being his and thought of Kioma, the woman who had cooked in that kitchen for 10 years, who had answered respectfully every time she spoke, who had carried 3 children out of that house at 4 in the morning without looking back. She thought of what she had once told her.
Put it down, my child. Knowing too much only brings more pain.
She had been wrong. It was not Kioma who suffered from knowing too much. It was her. Enugu did not welcome her with a miracle. No story about a woman starting over is easy, and Kioma had not come here looking for easy. She had come looking for a place to stand. Those were 2 completely different things. The first month was the hardest. 3 children in one small room at her cousin's house. Tabena slept on the bed. Neka and Chidi slept on a mattress on the floor. Kioma slept on the living room sofa and told herself it was temporary. Temporary required money. Money required work. Work required starting tomorrow. The next day, she called around looking for students who needed math tutoring. Her first student was the son of one of her cousin's neighbors, a 9th grader retaking mathematics. His mother paid weekly, not much, but enough to buy rice and pay Tobena's tuition at his new school. By the 3rd week, Kioma had 2 more students. By the 2nd month, she had 3 more. People recommended her not because she advertised, but because she taught in a way students could understand. A skill she had thought was gone after 10 years had merely been sleeping. The moment she met students again, it woke up. It took Tobena 2 months at the new school to make friends. In the 3rd month, he came home talking non-stop about school. Kioma listened and thought, there it is. He's okay now. Neneka enrolled in dance classes for the first time in her life, because in the old house there had been no space, no money, and no one who thought about it. Every evening she came home dancing around the room and singing songs no one knew. Chidi's hand gradually healed. The doctor said there would be very little scarring. One morning, Kioma looked at her son's hand, small, healed, holding a cookie, and for the first time, it no longer reminded her of that day. It was simply her son's hand, small and whole. She called her cousin from the bathroom and cried, the first time she had truly cried since leaving. Why are you crying? I don't know. I thought I was okay. You only cry once you're okay enough to cry. In the 2nd year, everything began coming together. Kioma rented a small apartment, 2 bedrooms, her name on the lease, the key in her hand. The first time she opened the door, she stood in the doorway for a while. Not because she was emotional, because she wanted to remember the feeling of something completely hers. Her first major tutoring contract came from an educational center that needed a high school mathematics teacher. Fixed teaching hours, monthly salary, insurance. She signed the contract with her own pen, at her own table, with her own name. One afternoon, she bought herself a beautiful dress, not because she was going anywhere, simply because she wanted to. The first time in many years, she had bought something for herself without calculating whether it was necessary. She went home and tried it on, stood before the mirror. Her body still carried the marks of 3 pregnancies. The stretch marks were still there. Her stomach was not flat like it had been at 20. She looked at herself in the mirror for a long time. Then she thought, these marks are proof that I raised 3 children, not something to be ashamed of. Proof of what I have done and something no one can take away from me. It was the first time she had thought that without needing someone else to tell her. News about the house came through her cousin. Someone in Lagos had passed it along. Rumors traveled faster than cars. Adora had mortgaged the house. The bank was about to take it. Kelechi did not have the money to save it. Kioma sat with that information one evening after the children had gone to bed. She was not happy, not satisfied. She simply sat and thought. That house had Tobena's room, the corner where he used to tape his drawings to the wall. Neka's room, the window overlooking the mango tree, the kitchen where Chidi used to run every morning. Her children might never need to return there, but she did not want them to lose it completely. She opened her savings account book, did the calculations, called a lawyer she knew in Lagos, not because of Kelechi, not because of Mama Kelechi, because her 3 children deserved to know that place had once existed, even if they no longer lived there. An invitation to her uncle's birthday celebration arrived the following month. He called 3 times. His voice sounded older than she remembered, but just as warm. "Are you coming home? I want to see you and the children." Kioma looked out the window. Enugu was golden and peaceful in the afternoon. "I'm coming, uncle." Kioma drove back to the village herself. The 3 children in the back seat, Tobena by the window watching the road, Naneka dozing off, Chidi eating cookies and singing something nobody could understand. She wore the beautiful dress she had bought for herself, her hair neatly styled. Not to impress anyone, simply because she wanted to return looking like herself. The real version of herself. Not the version who had stood washing dishes in a kitchen at 10 o'clock every night 10 years earlier. The car reached the entrance of the village. The first person to see her was Adeze, the vegetable seller at the corner. The woman stopped what she was doing, watched the car, then turned and said something to the person beside her. The news traveled ahead of the car, as always, as everything did in a village. Her uncle's yard was large and already crowded, plastic chairs, music from portable speakers, the smell of food from the outdoor kitchen. Kioma parked, helped Chidi out first, took Neka's hand. Tobena got out last, a head taller than he had been 2 years ago, shoulders broader, carrying the posture of a boy becoming a young man. He stood beside his mother. Without being told, she saw them before they saw her. Kelechi stood at the corner of the yard, thinner, clothes less neatly pressed than before, standing with the posture of someone who no longer knew where he belonged. Mama Kelechi sat near the entrance, older by 2 years. Grayer, her back no longer as straight as Kioma remembered. They saw her almost at the same time. No one spoke first. Around them, people were still laughing. Children were still running. Music was still playing. Life did not stop for anyone's moment. Mama Kelechi stood up, slowly. Her knees were no longer what they used to be. She crossed the yard toward Kioma. Kioma stood still, neither stepping back nor forward. The older woman came close. Looked at Kioma's face, truly looked, not the way she used to glance past her. Then she knelt down. In the middle of the yard, in front of everyone, a woman who had never knelt before anyone in her life.
"My child, I am sorry."
The crowd gradually fell silent. People began to watch. Kelechi stepped forward. He knelt too, saying nothing, simply kneeling as though words were no longer enough, and he knew it. Tobena stood beside his mother. He looked at his father kneeling on the ground, watched for a moment without showing any obvious emotion, then looked up at his mother's face, waiting. Naneka gripped her mother's hand more tightly. Chidi looked around, not understanding what was happening, then continued eating his cookie. Kioma stood in that moment, not rushing. There was nothing left to rush for. Then she bent down and helped Mama Kelechi to her feet. Not because she had completely forgiven her, but because she did not want an old woman kneeling in the middle of the yard. "Please stand up." The older woman rose, her eyes red, her hands trembling slightly. Kioma looked at Kelechi. He was still kneeling, looking up at her with something she did not want to name. "Stand up," he stood. "Kioma. Do you know the house has been mortgaged?" He blinked. "What?" "Adora mortgaged the house. The bank will take it next month if the debt is not paid." She took an envelope from her bag. "This is enough money to save it, not because of you. Because that house contains the rooms of my 3 children. They deserve to know it is still there, even if they no longer live in it." Kelechi looked at the envelope, then at his former wife, Kioma. "Let me say one thing, go ahead. I was wrong. Wrong from beginning to end. Not just about Adora. I was wrong from the day I left you standing alone in the kitchen and stopped seeing you." His voice trembled. "Please, there is nothing left to give, Kelechi. Not angry, not bitter. Simply true, the kind of truth that comes after everything else is finished. You are not a bad man. You are simply a man who made the wrong choice too many times until there was nothing left to choose again. I understand that." She placed the envelope in his hands. "But understanding does not mean I come back. Keep the house. Take care of your mother. That is all I can do." Mama Kelechi looked at Kioma, truly looked at her one final time. "You became the woman I did not deserve to have as a daughter-in-law." Kioma did not answer. There was no right answer to that. She simply nodded once, gently, then turned away. That evening after the birthday celebration, when most of the guests had left and the yard had grown quiet, Kioma sat on the porch steps with a glass of water in her hand. Her 3 children were running around the yard with the neighborhood children under the yellow lights. Chidi ran the fastest, his small hands swinging, shouting something nobody understood. Neka was teaching a younger child a dance she had learned in class, patient, serious, concentrating as if teaching a difficult subject. Tbena sat in one corner talking with a new friend. 2 teenage boys speaking quietly like adults, occasionally bursting into laughter before lowering their voices again. Her aunt came and sat beside her, watched the yard for a while. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay." "Really okay?" "Or okay so I won't worry?" Kioma looked toward the yard. Chidi had just fallen down, gotten back up, brushed off his knees, and continued running. No crying, no looking back, simply continuing. "Really okay, Auntie." She paused. "I'm not pretending." Her aunt nodded, said nothing more. She was the kind of person who understood that sometimes sitting beside someone was enough. After a while, Neka came running in, cheeks red, hair flying, and climbed into her mother's lap, even though she was 6 years old and a little too big for that. "Mommy, I'm tired." "Then sit here, Mommy." "Yes, sweetheart, I like it here better." "Better than where?" "Better than the old place." Naneka said it with the calm honesty children use when saying things adults need years to admit. "Mommy smiles more here." "Even your eyes smile, not just your mouth." Kioma looked down at her daughter sitting in her lap, 6 years old, and already able to see that. "Yes," she said softly, "Mommy sees that too." Tabina came in the last one to leave the yard, as always, as though he always wanted to make sure no one was left behind before coming in himself. He stopped at the porch steps, looked at his mother and sister sitting there, then sat down beside his mother, saying nothing, just sitting there. Kioma looked at her 3 children, one in her lap, one beside her, one being coaxed inside for a drink by her aunt. The 3 children she had taken out of that house at 4 in the morning with 2 suitcases and a savings account and no idea what tomorrow would bring. The 3 children were okay, laughing. Growing up in a home without fear, she needed nothing more. Outside, the village lights gradually came on. The frogs began calling. The smell of cooking smoke drifted from someone's house. A dog barked somewhere and then fell silent. The sounds of a place that knew its own name, not because she had been born there, but because it was where she had chosen to begin again. Kioma took a sip of water, looked into the darkness ahead, not thinking about Kalechi, not thinking about Adora, not thinking about 10 unhappy years, just sitting here, in this evening, with the sound of insects and the smell of smoke, and her daughter dozing in her lap, and her son sitting beside her without needing to say anything. It was enough, completely enough.